Something different tonight, interviewing somebody from our own place, the V, and that is Estelle Gilson, the poet, translator, and writer. She just wrote a new book, published a new book called Foundlings and Other Misfits, and we'll talk about that with her tonight. She is from New York, and she has translated a number of Italian books, stories, poems, and her favorite one is Stories and Recollections of Umberto Saba, which she published in 1993, which won 2 major awards while in manuscript, and then a prestigious award from the Modern Language Association. She has translated Hebrew poetry, she has translated a previous unknown French story, and 2 novels by the late magic realist Massimo Bontempelli. She's translated a version of Juvenal, Third Satire, which appeared in a 2000 Penguin anthology. She went to a Brooklyn School of Music and Arts and then to Columbia University for her master's degree in social work. And while she was there, she was a contributing editor to the Columbia University magazine, where she received a Silver Medal Award for the best article of the year. Her essays and articles have appeared in such publications as Newsweek, Travel and Leisure, Opera News, and Boating. Her short fiction and translations have appeared in The New Renaissance, Other Voices, Wind, and numerous other literary magazines. As though that weren't enough, for 56 years she was married to Saul Gilson, also born and educated in New York City, and after earning an MD degree from New York University and serving in the Army, he practiced medicine in New York, but he became interested in Greek, Latin, French, and English literature, and has written, published poetry that have poems that have appeared in a number of publications, including the Annals of Internal Medicine. A volume of his poetry was published in 1996 by Cross Cultural Communications. Unfortunately, he died in 2006, and shortly after, Estelle moved to San Diego to join her distinguished son, who is chairman of, there's so many interesting things here, a department at UCSD. Estelle, you'll find, is very modest, and so I had to say some of these things, and this is only a fraction of her work and her awards. So now, my interview with Estelle Gilson on this very interesting new book of hers, Foundlings and Other Misfits. Yeah. Quite amazing that this book has 41 poems that you wrote.
Yes.
And 15 short stories that you wrote.
Yes.
Which is different from your other work, which has a lot to do with translation of other people's work.
Yes.
If you want to say something at this point, don't let me ramble on, but I find these poems and these stories incredibly, sometimes full of pathos, and sometimes amazingly innovative and funny and imaginative. I think it's wonderful. So I know more about you than you know now. So.
Well, you left out one word about a lot of these stories, and that is angry. Because a friend of mine just looked at the book and said, "Yes, there is anger." And I said, "Yes, there is." Uh,
It seems so unlike you.
well, you know, comedians are sad people. You know a comedian. Okay, it's
Okay, just because you laugh a lot, I
yes,
can hide some shyness, not some anger. But what do I know? I don't know. Tell me.
yes. Well, uh, these poems were written. Well, some of them began very early on, and some of them are recent since I'm here at V, and since I joined a poetry workshop here, which kept me working. But my first poetry was as a child. I actually wrote a poem and set it to music when I was, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old.
Oh my gosh.
And then I abandoned it, all that, and eventually went on to translating. I was a social worker in my early.
Yeah, I was going to say that. How did that help? Or did it?
Uh, I don't know. It's experience. Everything you do in life is an experience that takes you someplace else. So help. It helps. It helps. It helps advance your view of people. It helps advance your view of yourself. You know.
Okay. Back to the anger.
Yeah.
Where does that stem from? Or what is that about?
If you read the poems, I think that will help you know. The anger. The anger is what you cannot express always, particularly as a child. And it accumulates. And I think if you read the poems, the title is Foundlings, and it's about people who don't quite don't find a place that they belong early in life. And these are people who just don't fit in for whatever reason in life. So
it's been a trademark of yours, hasn't it? Sort of
what?
Identification with misfits and foundlings.
It's it's accumulated. It's you don't always realize what you're doing as you go through life. You know, you go through. I had a very unadventurous life, Faye, not like yours. I didn't try. I had no urge to travel or see anything different. I guess I was tied up inside with my own inner travels. Let's put it that way. And well, uh, maybe I'll read you a poem that you know.
Oh, which one do you? I'm very interested in the man who sold his mother, but yeah,
That's the whole story.
Well, it fits in with this V, retirement community thing,
Yes.
and the COVID thing and everything.
Actually, I have a web page, EstelleGilson.com, and I think that story is on that page. I think I posted that story. It's kind of long to read now.
Oh no, I'm not suggesting you read it, but I'm suggesting everybody else read it.
Yes,
So,
yes.
EstelleGilson.com is the webpage.
When it's in the book, buy the book. Don't wait for that.
I mean, even the first poem about foundlings is so.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I got heartache from reading some of these things.
Oh, yeah. The baby's room, yes.
Yes, the pair I never figured out, but
I dream of foundlings,
Yes.
silent babes in darkened rooms breathing their innocence. I dream my infant son, compact, talc scented, warm in my arms, sucking my poisoned breast. I dream the stripling child I lost, mutely watching copulation on a screen. Neither of us knows how old he is. I dream the infant girl waking to hunger's rage, whose mother climbs Escher's steps and never reaches her. She will dream of foundlings.
That hurts. But poison breast? What is that?
I will not explain my poems, Faye. I read a story about Wallace Stevens, who writes famously complicated and difficult to understand poetry. And a friend of his, who was, the guy who called him by his first name and said to him, Wallace, I don't understand your poems. And Stephen said to him, that's okay. I understand them. So that's.
When you and I were in a poetry group together, we were always trying to make
Yes.
autobiographical references to things that were in the poetry and trying to figure it out.
Yes, yes, yes.
And that's not the way to read poetry, apparently.
Why not? It is one way to read poetry. There is no way to read poetry. There's no way to read anything. If you have read a novel like, I guess, let's say War and Peace or Anna Karenina, if you read it as a teenager when everybody's, going into these long romantic novels that they think they order, it's one story. If you read Anna Karenina as a married woman, it's a different story. You hear and read different things in it. So it's the same thing that you bring to poetry. Everybody brings. You bring your own experience. You bring your own heart, your own mind to whatever you're reading. I mean,
We don't need to understand why the breast was poisoned. Sorry to be so concrete when you're so wonderfully abstract.
no, actually, it's concrete, but I have to explain it to you. It's every word in a poem counts. Every word in a poem counts. So, but I'm not going to explain every word in a poem.
Okay, things that maybe we both agree on is your background and how it is that you came to go from being a social worker, no, to translating a lot of Italian work
Yes.
and also French and Hebrew. Now that's requires a lot of talent. First of all, do you speak those languages?
No. Well, I did speak French, more or less French. The talent that you require for translation is command of your own language. There is a book of Yiddish poetry, edited by what was his first name? Not Irwin Howe. What was his first name? Oh, anyway, Howe. I can't remember. Howe. I can't remember his first name. At any rate, that book is a collection of Yiddish poetry translated by eminent English writing poets. These poets knew no Yiddish. They were given literal translations. They were given examples of the rhythm of the poem. They were given examples of the rhyming structure of the poem. And they were turned loose to translate these poems. I Irwin Howe. No, what? I don't know why I'm stuck on that. But for any reason, they had to pass muster with Howe, who of course read Yiddish. And this is a great big book of Yiddish poetry by people who did not speak Yiddish. I knew enough French to translate the Stendhal story. I knew, well, let me see, the Italian is a whole other story. I knew enough Hebrew, and I knew the poet whom I translated, Gabriel Preil, P-R-E-I-L. And I worked with Gabriel on the translations. So we would meet, and we would, he would meet in pastry shops so we could have coffee and cake in the Bronx.
In the Bronx, not in Paris.
Oh, this is the Bronx is yes, a very important place, and we worked on these poems together. The Italian came from my love of opera. I got oh God, I just fell in love with it, with the language, and at a time when the children were old enough, and my husband and I were planning to go to Italy, I decided to study at Jewish, and I did. And then, well, I'm telling you, the Bronx was a very important place. In those days, in the Bronx, when is this, the 50s, 60s, they had a lot of Italian books because there was a large Italian population there at the time. Oh, Little Italy. And I found books that had very interesting stories and very interesting poetry. And one was Umberto Saba, who had, I don't think, ever been translated into English, and Massimo Bontampelli, who had, I don't think, been translated into English. And so, little Estelle didn't know anything about translation.
I think it's astonishing. Keep going.
Yeah, and so, yeah, that went well. The Saba particularly won a number of awards in manuscript, as a matter of fact. So, yeah, I became a translator.
You have won an amazing number of awards. I won't go into it, but I'm so impressed.
Yeah.
And you translated 6 books in Italian of poetry and novels, novellas, and everything.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I know.
Yeah, and you're still doing it.
Well, you know, I can hardly remember English these days. Italian. Not only that, I'm studying Yiddish here with a little group.
Are you?
Trying to learn Hebrew really seriously, so I'm very busy.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. I'm staying home busy. You're go away busy.
Well, not now. So no, that's why I'm so glad to have an opportunity to finally talk to you. Back to your personal life, you were married to an amazing guy who was a doctor and a poet. And that lasted 54 years before he died in 2006, wasn't it?
Yes. But he was more than that. He was, well, you know.
No, I don't know anything.
People a little bit nutsy, right? He had studied Latin. He was a man who was interested in the classics. So he had studied literature before he became a physician. And when the boys began, I had 2 sons, when the boys began studying Latin, he resumed his early school Latin. And then he got hooked on learning Greek. And he taught himself Greek, and he taught himself the old Greek, because what's the sense of reading Greek? You want to read home. So that's what he did. He taught himself Greek, and he later in life, and he was in his 70s and 80s, he went to classes at Fordham University. It was very nice and allowed him to sit in at classes. And so that's what Saul was. Yeah, he was exceptional, man.
Sounds like amazing. And he's a published poet too, isn't he?
Yes, he has a book of his poetry called Basilisk. I can find it on the internet. I'm not sure. I think so. Yes.
Are your two sons involved in the same pursuit?
No, my sons. My oldest son died of a pancreatic cancer.
Oh my gosh.
But they were both scientists. The breakfast table was all scientists. I think I'm the only one in the family who's not an MD or a PhD, including my daughter-in-law.
Really?
So, so Micah's a scientist, and he's here at UCSD, which is why I'm in San Diego. All right, my voice is sinking, I bet. All right.
You wanted to read a poem that you had picked out, I think.
Oh, okay, I will read. All right, let's see. I printed them because let me read you the doll. Where is the doll? Oh, isn't that lovely? I can't find it.
The doll that is
Oh, I'll find it here.
died. Is that what happened to that doll?
Huh?
That doll died?
The doll. She was born in June. Dolls have birthdays too. Festive days when the gods little girls barely dream of bend low to make them smile. And was immediately unloved. Perhaps a boy was wanted. Perhaps she came too early or was imperfect. It's true, a sawdust leaked a little and her cheeks were setting suns, but she cried, "Mama." The gods make bitter mistakes. So she was lifted from her box, and it seemed like love. Even the gods were fooled to see her pressed so fiercely against those tiny breasts. Now, of course, it's too late. Crushed for the other's loneliness, torn for her wounds, there is no sawdust left. Still, dangling from the sleeper's hand, she cries, "Mama." You gonna cry? Don't cry. I don't hear you.
Yeah, I did cry when I read it. For the doll and for the girl, but then she seemed to be important to the little girl anyway, even though her sawdust was running out, and she wasn't very loved when she was first arrived.
Yes.
Yes.
Let me read you a cheerful poem.
Okay.
I think it's time. All right, so, okay. Let me read you my wild thing. They say if a poet you want to be, invite your fiercest fear for tea. All the lions and tigers were out of town. I got a hairy beast with a wicked frown. Boo, she yelled through the saber-sharp teeth. I fell to the floor, I could hardly breathe. We had egg salad, pickles, and good white wine. I spoke when I thought she looked more benign. Are you nasty and mean, all my worst fears? I boldly asked on the verge of tears. I am, she roared. I am, she roared, all smirky with bile. Then shockingly added, now, honey, smile. But you're hairy and scary and dangerous, too. Well, still, now we've met, I can never hurt you. Then up she leaps and dances me round, and we whirl and we laugh and we fall to the ground. Then we walk and we talk until she has to go home. And look, everyone, I wrote a poem.
There's something Maurice Sendak about that.
Yes, it is. Yeah, my
The wild things.
yeah. What was his mother used to say it? Wilde Haya. That's the Yiddish for a wild beast, a wild animal. Wilde Haya. Yeah, there was Sendak in there. But that's what happens. But the poem is also a story about conquering your fears, about writing in some way. I think that's what Sendak did too. These beasts were his fears. And so you have to get past that one way or another. Mm.
It certainly helped children to personify these.
Yes. Yeah. You're a psychologist, right? You know that.
I used to be.
Yeah. We all used to be something. Well, I'm sure that stuff is in you. You think in those terms today. I mean, that's why you read poetry, Faye.
And not as much as you do.
No,
and not as profoundly and very superficially. And that was the trouble with our poetry group. Half the poems that came there, we couldn't quite figure it out.
But there are poets who write like that.
Yeah.
There are poets who want to be understood.
Billy Collins.
Yes. And this Italian poet whose prose work I translated. Still, don't tell me. Umberto Saba. His poet. He wanted to be understood. It was part of what he wrote, part of what he stated about himself. And then there were poets who really. Who how can I say this? It's a period like this in music as well, when there was like a certain kind of technical artistry required in the schools. They were teaching a different kind of music. There was a time when, melody is out in music. You wrote I can't go into all the technical reasons, but the rhythm, the orchestration, everything was important to stress these angles or to stress these factors in the music, in the poetry, and melody. Melody was out. It's bad.
Visual art, the same thing.
Huh?
Visual art, the same thing.
Yes, yeah.
Representational to abstract to.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where do you fall in that spectrum, or have you fluctuated over the years?
No. I started with Italian opera. I'm all for melody. I never lost, but I do listen. I was a member of Contemporary Opera Society. I do follow contemporary music and contemporary art, but I go for melody. I go for schmaltz.
In your poetry?
Let's see. Is there any schmaltz in my poetry? Yeah.
But your poetry is sort of impressionistic, not so well. But your stories are.
No. My little sister, why I became a writer. Where is this? I only did all this. Little sister. Okay.
By the way, is your book available yet on Amazon? I don't think so.
I'm sorry?
Is your book available yet on Amazon, or will it ever
It's
be?
available on Amazon.
Yeah.
I have some copies, if I don't have to mail them, for V residents who want them. I have some copies that I can make available for. Well, can I do this? Can I do a
Yes, you can do this. You commercial space is available.
President wants the residents want them. They can have them for $10.
Okay.
Or on Amazon. Okay, and I don't have to mail them. So that would be fine.
Just email you and
What?
say, just email person. One of your fans should email you and say, I want one.
Well,
And
you can email me and send money first.
send money. Okay. Very hard to do by email.
No, well, email the intention and then my box. Can I do this? It seems my box is $7.50. Okay.
We haven't heard from the management yet, so I think it's
I
okay.
don't know. They may throw me out. Well, no, he can edit. Ken can edit that out, I hope.
Not at all. Not at all. No. I mean, how rare is it for one of our VP to publish? So, and this is such a profound book.
Let me read. Well, the stories, maybe there's one story I can read. This poem, Little Sister, is, I think, I am in a hotel room in a strange city on the eve of my granddaughter's wedding. We didn't meet at the airport this time, dragging suitcases behind and waving at each other, giddy with release from mundane chores. We would be whispering now, bed to bed in this gaudy room, recalling early loves, gathering fragments of loss, doing remember? Giggling over our little girl years when we kicked and quarreled on the iron-legged couch that yawned for us every night. Little sister, deepest vessel of memory, once again the smiling child in a high chair offering bread but unable to say my name. I am without you in a hotel room in a strange city on the eve of your granddaughter's wedding. Ah, oh, you're right.
Oh, that's so sad.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
Have your poems changed with age, your age, that is, or the age of
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the dedication in this book is Dante, Nel mezzo del camino. I mean, in the middle of the road, I was lost. And what I wrote after that is Out of the Woods, Not Yet in Paradise. So let's say some of the stories and some of the early poems are working your way out of emotional difficulties. And then, I don't know if I should tell you the story.
You definitely should.
Nobody will ever talk to me.
That sounds just like the one we
I will tell you the story. I will tell you. We have time. I mean, Ken is not getting tired. Many years ago, when I was in this angry mother's state of being, I wrote a piece for Newsweek about, well, we don't really have to celebrate Mother's Day anymore because Mother's Day was created, I think, when is the 19th century or early in the 20th century, when mothers was scrubbing on scrubbing boards and making starch to bleach shirts and doing all this hard work. And Newsweek published it. Newsweek gave it a title called Down with Mother's Day. They never had received so much mail as they did with that. At the same time, that piece, well, this is a warning for writers. They paid me once a lot of money for that story, but they are still running it on the internet and making money from advertising on my piece. It's still running. Newsweek is still running that piece. You could read it on the internet. But the interesting thing is, aside from all the hate mail, there were a lot of letters from one particularly I remember from a priest who wrote how heartsick he was every Mother's Day to have to preach about how wonderful mothers are when he himself had not had a wonderful mother, had had a difficult mother. So there are, the assumption.
Mothers are good and benign and helpful. And
yes, that's the illusion. And you as a Scientologist, as a woman of the world, I mean, you know that's not true. And so if you, I had a wonderful mother. No, wait a minute. I had a lovely, wonderful mother, very bright woman. Did I read you this poem?
That's very helpful, by the way, Estelle. That the anger that you talked about initially didn't generate from not having a loving, wonderful mother?
It generated from having when I read other writers' dedications to their mothers, who inspired them, who pushed them, who who always said, "You're right, honey. Go for it, honey." I didn't have that. And I'm not the only one who didn't have that. And I am sad when I read of people who have had that. I learned early on, you want to depend on somebody, you have to depend on yourself. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who have learned that lesson. And many writers who, for very, very many reasons, had to, had to escape restrictions or whatever. So, yeah. So,
not rely on the kindness of strangers or the kindness of mothers, but on yourself.
On yourself, early on, yes. You want something, you have to do it. Okay? Let me read you. This is another. How about, you don't want to cry again? You want to cry? A daughter is a stone in the heart. Hard to be a stone, harder to be a stone in her heart. What can sing in a stone, spit by raging Lissa, abandoned to a kneel and choke the way of seedlings? Can a stone shout its faith, cry its afflictions? Yet a stone struck against its grain fractures as it does a heart. I'll read you something cheerful. I need to find something cheerful.
And of course, my concrete self would say, well, you didn't have daughters. You must be talking about yourself.
Well, okay.
doing Rorschach, so.
This ink blot says.
Right.
Oh,
But that's cool. Sad.
okay. Then I'll read you why I became a writer so late in life.
Good.
This is just a little tale. Oh yes, writing is good. Grandpa was a writer. Tolstoy was a writer. So was Shakespeare. So was Hilda somebody or other. See, her name is pictures in the paper. Only 10 years old, and she wrote a book of poems. I am on a beach on the boardwalk sitting next to someone, probably uncle. My back is against the back of the bench with my legs, my humiliating little girl legs, straight out in front of me. What kind of a day is it? The sun is huge, glaring down through brown splintery slats, sitting heavily on skin, angling through iron rails, pitting gritty sand, and the rest is blue, sea and sky, with the wind made visible by waves and tilted sails. I guess I had a pad and pencil with me, or someone did, and I felt like writing a poem. Why? Maybe it was the frivolous sunbeams, maybe the grace of the distant boats. Do poets ever know? I thought it should be the real poets ever know. Okay, there it is, even real poets. I had never seen a sailboat close up. Maybe it was just the pastel dancing it of what lay before my eager eyes. Whatever, I did it. I wrote a poem. Very nice. What a clever child to write a poem. Only you used blue before, see? On the second line. So use something else here. And ship, that's wrong. It should be boat. And the last two lines don't rhyme, see? Let Uncle fix it up for you. And make it perfect. And have it typed. And show it off. Over your name, of course. After all, writing is good. Grandpa was a writer. Tolstoy was a writer. So was Shakespeare. And so is God, though they spared me that.
That's amazing.
So,
How was your family about your writing?
like that.
Like that? You had an uncle like that?
I had an uncle. Yeah. I had an uncle. They were all, you know what, writing all this and the stories, which I haven't, had time to read here. But you do, when you get it out of your system, if you do, you're lucky as I am and do get out of the woods, then you understand better. And then the anger is not there anymore. It's not intense. It's not you understand. You understand why it happened, and you understand how it happened. You understand your own part in it. You understand what was motivating these people who were trying to help you, but were limited by whatever their own circumstances were. It's good. It's good. So there's a lot of, I didn't, there's a lot of poetry subsequent to this early stuff. But for me, it was important to get past that, to be able to.
You had two serious deaths, your husband and your son. Have you written a lot about death? Or thought a lot about it?
No. No. I had a death when I was 18, the boy I was engaged to was killed in the war. No, I've had a lot of experience with it, and I don't write. I haven't written about. Well, Oh, well. I have written about it. Yeah, my last poems. I'm very old.
We all are here.
I'm just older. Very older than you be. Than you are. My last poems are about, in contemplation of. But I don't think about it. I believe in tomorrow. I think I've written a poem, something like that. I have to have tomorrow. Because I don't think you can function today unless you believe in tomorrow.
Lovely thing to say.
Huh?
It's a lovely thing to say.
No, I really, there was what was the name of that famous Greek writer? Oh,
You had something to say about Socrates at one point in your work.
I did say something about Socrates. Do you want me to read that?
Sure.
I'll have to find it.
I have an affinity to Socrates because
I think it's pretty much of it. Oh, it's called psychotherapy.
oh,
I spent, you don't want to know how many years and dollars on psychotherapy and discover that all you bastards are innocent. I'm the one ruining my life. Now what? Hemlock? Screw you, Socrates.
wow. I feel insulted.
That's why I'm apologizing. There has to be tomorrow, Faye. There has to be tomorrow.
So you have been
until there isn't tomorrow, okay?
You've been very influenced by your poetry group you mentioned. Tell it a little bit.
I went to work. Yes, I joined a week. I joined a workshop at Rifford Library. So I've been going there for many years. Yeah.
You said this book would not have happened without that group, right?
No, I don't think so. No, the book would have happened. Oh, well, I can't say yes or no. I mean, if you go to a workshop, you sort of there's sort of an obligation, to bring work in every week, and because we discuss each other's work. Yeah, and from that point of view, yes, it does. And I took classes down at Writers Inc. When I first moved in here. So I think you have to keep working. You don't always, writing is a strange thing, and translating writing. I mean, because I did a lot of journalism. You can't always wait for inspiration. You can't. You just sit down and write. You have to sit down and I don't do it so much anymore. I'm what a weary and ill at ease. What is that? When my fingers wandered over free floating, so free associating. But what can I say? You have to do it. You can't wait for inspiration. You just do. And then a lot of stuff that you've written, you go over it and you find it isn't right. You still want to change it. Because poetry, you're trying to say something which is, in a sense, ephemeral. You're trying to capture something, which you can't really express. You can't really express in prose unless you want to write, a huge novel. but it's you're really just catching a moment. You're catching a fleeting moment, a sensation which is maybe otherwise inexpressible, in straight declarative sentences. So you sometimes rewrite, and sometimes when you just scribble, ideas come. So.
You've been an inspiration to poets here at the V.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you have.
Okay.
I discovered about your laugh that it's a way of belittling yourself, which is definitely not appropriate for what you've accomplished in your life.
Well, there is something in what you say, because I came to my career as a translator just doing what I wanted to do. I decided I wanted to translate Saba because I loved Italian. I found this book and it was so interesting, and I thought the whole world ought to read it. So I translated it. I translated it. And it won those awards, which is, very, very nice. It took 20 years to get the book published.
Why?
Well, because he's an Italian writer, because of there are vogues in what gets published. The very famous, I can't remember now. I mean, this is so long ago. What's the name? There was not Jovanovich. There was a couple that published. They were famous for publishing foreign books. And then there was Shock Publishing, which owned the castle, Kafka. And they own all the Kafka rights. I mean, there are a lot of publishers who publish, specialize and publish foreign translated publication. Nobody wanted to publish it. There is a fashion. I couldn't buy blue carpeting when I got married. I had to buy,
So anyway, you weren't discouraged. You persevered.
No, I was not discouraged. I knew that stuff was good. But what I wanted to tell you, I was a cottage industry. I was I was sitting in my little cottage, and theoretically speaking, and turning out these translations. And it's like, look, I wrote a poem. Look, I have a career as a translator. It was a surprise.
Yes.
It was a surprise. I didn't, look at that. I published it. I'm just sitting in my corner making myself happy.
That's wonderful. I mean, it's an inspiration, I think.
I'm very lucky. Am
I mistaken that this is your second book of your own original work?
No, I wrote...
There's another one, isn't there?
The 70s. What I wrote, it's not listed. I don't know if it's listed.
There's something biography, Szigeti. I don't know what that is.
Oh, Szigeti was a violinist.
It's his biography.
Huh?
It's his biography, not yours. Yeah. Okay.
It was his biography. He was an anniversary of his death, and they were doing a particular concert in Carnegie Hall, I was asked to write. I wrote about Bartok at one point, so I did a lot of profiles for Columbia University, people associated with Columbia. And I did all these Nobel laureates, and I think I did Bartok because he had some Columbia connection.
But this book is your own published work for the first time, is that right?
No. I wrote a series of satires based on Juvenal, the Latin poet.
Right.
And they, one of them was published in the Penguin book of, I think I wrote that one of the Penguin book of Penguin Classics Juvenile in English. And there are only two women in that book. I think I wrote you that was one of the things I was proudest of, because there I'm in company with, I think I wrote it down, I can't remember, Johnson and Defoe and Donne and all kinds of famous poets. And the only two women in there are Aphra Behn, who was like centuries ago, and me. Then I had the three satires that I had written, 1, 3, and 10, were published in a very small book called Miss Juvenile. And I think that's also available on Amazon. So that was.
And of course, your work is cited in anthologies, but
yeah.
This book, I think, is a very important milestone in your career.
It is. And it is toward the end.
That's what I talked about that. But anyway,
I'll keep
talk about that. But.
I'll keep doing it. But it is. It was time. I just felt it was time. I had all these poems and stories have been published elsewhere. I mean, they have a life someplace else, in various publications. But I just, it was time. Well, it was, as you said, it was time for me to maybe take it more seriously, and not smile ingratiatingly anymore.
I don't see it as ingratiating.
What do you see?
I see it as changing the subject from you to something else. Let's not get too psychological around here. But
you're good.
It's frustrating because even in our poetry group that we had, when we turned to you for expertise or your own work or something like that, laughing would be your response. And it's not funny, McGee. It is serious. You are a serious writer, a serious poet.
There's a reason for that. Because I don't think
I can't hear you anymore.
To me, for poetry, I think, I don't know that much.
I know, but you do.
Okay. Well, it's that lousy beginning I had, right? I'm still working it out.
Which I still don't understand. A loving, caring mother, but not inspirational, not in any way. Have to. Not in
No, read the book. There's more.
See what she does.
There is, yes. That's what I do. I can't. I think I said a lot more than I thought I would ever say.
Well, I was going to ask you because you mentioned to me that interviewing people like you is one of the things you did all your life.
I did, yes, and you let them talk.
Yes.
You ask a pithy question and you let them roll on.
So what did I miss here that you would like to talk about that I just glossed over?
Oh, God, I can't think of anything. No. What? Can we do a PS? I can't think of anything. I think I've the Confessions of Estelle Gilson. I think that's. No, I don't think so. I think I have no idea. We've been talking for an hour.
I know.
And I said, what are we going to say to each other? And I thought an hour is too long. It's going to be boring.
I mean, you've had a long, productive, unusual life. And I was going to say for a woman, and true for a woman, but for anybody. And it sounds like an enriching marriage.
Yeah.
Good family life.
Yeah.
You've experienced the death of a son, which is shocking to me. and your husband, and here you are in old folks' home and so productive. I mean, you're with your poetry group and you're encouraging us here at the V and learning Yiddish and doing all these things.
Yeah.
I think you're an inspiration, Estelle.
Oh, thank you. All
Go
right.
ahead.
That's nice to know. I won't. Yes, thank you, Faye.
Okay. Don't belittle it.
No, there was a cartoon many years ago. I saw a young girl is opening the door for a boyfriend, and clearly he must have said with a nice dress. And she says, "Oh, it's just a little old thing I had," and all the, well, she just made this gorgeous dress. The schmatters are on the floor and back of the pieces. So, like you say thank you. I'm trying to learn say thank you. Not tell you I don't know enough.
Very good. And I thank you. This has been a very interesting
It's
and I hope someday at the V we'll continue it over dinner, maybe.
okay. I hope we
Talk
don't.
to each other.
Okay. And thank Ken, and thank you for the opportunity.
Ken's doing the technical part of this, so.
Okay, but I thank him too. I hope it happens. Okay.
I very much enjoyed the conversation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Okay. I'm going to leave the meeting.
Yes, leave.
Are we on camera?
Let's see if there are any.
Are we on camera?
Yes, I am here. Well, it's been a long session, folks. This is the first time with the chat. We have not gotten too many comments. So, let's see if there are any.
Are we on camera? Estelle's not here to answer anything.
Well, it's been a long session. Well, Estelle could answer by writing. This is the first time with the chat. We have not gotten too many comments. So, let's see if there are any. Okay. Well, Estelle could write to answer. Okay. I think we better